Orlowski, and Vivian directs our Operation Pollination program here in the Upper Housatonic Valley. Thank you, Vivian. Take it away.
There, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Dan, and thank you everyone for listening. I appreciate the opportunity to share highlights about Housatonic Heritage Operation Pollination, and let's start with a few key questions. Next slide, please. What is Operation Pollination? It's a framework for pollinator habitat restoration and education, initiated in Minnesota in 2018 and already adopted by 20 national heritage areas from a total of 62 national heritage areas in the country. And Rotary International and 50 Rotary districts have also become active in Operation Pollination. I participate in bi-monthly Operation Pollination ambassadors meetings online, and this is a group who are advancing this initiative in their regions, and we're eager to learn about each other's projects. Next slide, please. So why care about pollinators? In 1987, eminent Harvard biologist, naturalist, entomologist E.O. Wilson made the case for, quote, the little things that run the world. Wilson calculated that if invertebrates were to disappear, it was doubtful that the human species could last more than a few months. That explains why, with human survival at stake, we're now hearing alarms about the insect apocalypse, quote unquote. Next slide, please. Well, who's paying attention? Until recently, it's been scientists, entomologists, ecologists, naturalists documenting the growing crisis. This didn't happen overnight, but now awareness is growing. Just a few days ago, Washington Post columnist Dana Milbank, who's not an environmentalist, confessed his own gardening obliviousness and also confronted his readers about how our gardens are, quote unquote, killing the earth. Milbank critiqued the environmental wastefulness of lawns, 50 million acres of turf grass in the US, and suggested the importance of landscaping with native plants. Next slide, please. It's encouraging to hear from newly awakened journalists like Dana Milbank, but indigenous traditions that are thousands of years old can provide unique perspectives. They can inspire us to become architects of abundance. For example, this brief clip from Diné educator Lila June about the 3,000-year-old solutions to modern problems. Could you please play click on the link for the excerpt?
And Vivian, I just want to confirm you wanted to start at 1 minute, 30 seconds?
Correct.
Okay,
And
let me know.
And end at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, yeah.
Perfect.
People have proven is possible. For tens of thousands of years, Native people of this land constructed beautiful gardens all around them. Contrary to the myth of the primitive Indian, we were not passive observers of nature, nor were we wandering bands of nomads looking for a berry to eat or a deer to hunt. No, by and large, we were active agents in shaping the land to produce prolific abundance. We expanded and designed grasslands and forests for the benefit of all life. And in many places, we still do these things. We became what the world calls a keystone species, or a species upon which entire ecosystems depend. And our cultures became keystone cultures, refined over time. Now, much was made last year about the positive environmental.
Sorry to cut her off. She has a lot to say, but due to time constraints, let's go back to what we're doing now, inspired by such statements and even more that Lila June offers. And by the way, she's going to be a speaker in a series on food and the environment that Kripalu is sponsoring starting next week. So that's free and accessible to the public if you go to their website. Or Dan, I can send you the link, and she's definitely worth listening to. Anyhow, inspired by that and also by the speakers that we had as part of our honoring our Indigenous Heritage course, we are focusing on education. Could you please go to the next slide?
Effect of.
Yeah, this was the course that was last year, which we mentioned in our previous presentation in August. But in September, we continued with an on-site experience, a guided walk on the Bidwell House Museum grounds. And this was an effort, collaboration between Housatonic Heritage and Berkshire Community College's Osher Lifelong Learning Institute. Next slide, please. Yeah, here's Russ Cohn up and close with one of his plants. I don't remember. I asked him which one this was, but I don't remember. Maybe some of you know better than I do. But he has a fascinating way of tying in his current interest in wild edibles and looking back at what Native Indigenous people, how they used local plants. And next slide, please. This awakened the interest of a Berkshire Eagle journalist who attended Russ's Wild Edibles Walk and resulted in a feature article in the Eagle, which helped publicize Bidwell House Museum, Ollie, and Housatonic Heritage. Next slide, please. Housatonic Heritage's Operation Pollination program is gaining attention beyond our region. In the fall, in September, I was invited by the National Park Service National Heritage Areas Program to present to their September 22nd Best Practices meeting, which was focused on pollinator partnerships at several national heritage areas. And this is a screenshot of the YouTube presentation with my familiar first slide and some of the people listening from other national heritage areas. I think there were about 30 people on the call from across the country. Next slide, please. Regionally, I also help publicize our work and our issues by presenting Operation Pollination to the 6th Annual Berkshire Natural History Conference, which was co-sponsored by BCC, MCLA, and Williams, took place on October 1st. And it was coordinated at BCC by the environmental sciences professor, Tom Tyning. Next slide, please. At that time, around 6 months ago, Dan and I started conversations with Tom Tyning about Housatonic Heritage possibly sponsoring a pollinator plan for the BCC campus in coordination with the Conway School's graduate program in sustainable landscape planning and design. I had worked with the Conway School very successfully on developing the Great Barrington Pollinator Action Plan in 2018, and also a Growing Better Great Barrington Food System plan in 2022, last year. Next slide, please. So after about 6 months of discussions and preparations, the BCC Plan for Climate Resilience and Pollinators launched this week. The long-term vision is for BCC's 180-acre campus to provide diverse, pollinator-friendly, and climate-resilient landscape models for student and community education. Conway School grad student team will develop designs for designated areas of campus with input from BCC students, faculty, staff, and administrators. And broader community participation will be encouraged in 2 community town halls or community forums. Yesterday, we had the first meeting of a core team from BCC, faculty, student, and staff, and with the grad student team of Shane Geiger and Ted Martini, who have impressive previous experience individually working for the National Park Service and serving as a garden manager for a botanical garden. Next slide, please. The 180-acre BCC campus includes wetlands, forests, and a 15-acre upland meadow, which is surrounded by and accessed via the John Lambert Nature Trail. Next slide, please. The BCC plan for climate resilience and pollinators will also include the core campus, which is most heavily used, with buildings and parking lots, as you can see in this slide. Next slide, please. Collaboration with OLLI, which I mentioned previously in reference to Russ Cohn, is continuing with planning for habitat as the new theme for a variety of events in 2023 and 2024. Our first event, in coordination with what's happening with the BCC plan, will be on Monday, May 8th, about providing habitat for pollinators, birds, and other essential wildlife. Amy Meltzer, the experienced speaker from the Massachusetts Pollinator Network, will describe why and how to plant a native garden. And Housatonic Heritage is co-sponsoring this event with OLLI in order to provide free access to the public via Zoom, and it will be broadly publicized to make it more accessible. Next slide, please. I mentioned the Massachusetts Pollinator Network. This is a program of the Northeast Organic Farming Association of Massachusetts, and is a very active group, and has monthly meetings and invited speakers, and also a great place to network and to learn about what local towns are doing, and regional initiatives, as well as state policies, and advocate for pollinators on all levels. Next slide, please. Along with coordinating with the Massachusetts Pollinator Network, we also have recently made contact, thanks to Dan, with Homegrown National Park, co-founded by Doug Tallamy and Michelle Alfandari, who lives in I think in Sharon, Connecticut, in our region. And they are launching, or they have launched over the past year and a half, an ambitious project to, next slide, you can see, with the goal of converting 20 million acres from lawns to native habitat. And the illustration is of a brochure that's available on their website. The previous slide and this one gives very specific ideas and help. And their website has a lot of resources to help further this goal. We continue to seek ways of coordinating with them, and the Massachusetts Pollinator Network is